Oh,
We have a very special guest for today's episode of Own Your Healthcare. Welcome to the Own Your Healthcare podcast. I'm Jessica Ardeal. With us, we have the lovely Lynn Misch and, oh, squish your face, Mr. Oliver.
Oliver's here. Sonny's trying to get up, and Sonny's having a little bit of a delay. Now you're going to hear from the other country because he's like, "What do you mean he gets to be star of the show this morning?" Right? They're so spoiled. But if you got them, you got to have them, right? Son, you want to come up for a minute too, so you can be a star? No? All right.
All
He's not
right. Well, thank you for joining us. And hi, Lynn, you look lovely today. Thank you
and,
for being here. Love
and
you.
right back at you, Miss Jess. Yeah.
Where shall we go today?
Happy hump day. Right?
Always.
Happy Wednesday. Yeah, happy hump day. As
Every
they
day.
say in the work world. Yeah, no kidding. So I guess we should just kind of spin out. I think that again, the whole process of all of this is not to replace medical care or your providers and that kind of thing. That this is to be additional support and education and hopefully some fun in the different topics that we will be got lapping dogs water because we need a lot of water every day. But anyway, so to hopefully offset or help different participants with questions and concerns that they may have with their own healthcare. And I think that that's a good way to start. What do you think, Miss Jess? You do look lovely today. I love your rosy cheeks.
Oh, thank you. I'm beginning some sun between all of the rain here. Um, I was having some thoughts this morning and I didn't jot them down. And wouldn't you know, I'm trying to think what they were. But I was like, oh, that's good. You ever have those thoughts come through and
Yeah. And I think it's important to sometimes keep um a journal, because I think it's important to really capture it's even like talking about dream journals and things like that, but to really capture those different thoughts because I think they're important a lot of times. So I think that it's good with all of that. It was interesting yesterday because we were talking about um, sleep because that's going to be one of our lunch and learns and fatigue and that kind of thing. And so I was really working on different notes from students, and it was odd because two of the students popped up with um, sleep issues from patients. And so then I sent one student because she really, when I work with students, I really want them to get the patient's story because I think that that's really important. And I think that when patients come to you, if you are good at asking questions, number one, um, they will tell you what is going on. And so it's really very quickly establishing that relationship in today's world, especially establishing that relationship so that they can build that sense of trust. And it was interesting because the one student in particular, and I get to be, because they're going to be, after they're finished with me this semester, they go out into the real world and they're nurse practitioner students. And I really want them to have a really solid foundation. I think the thing that's important when we work with people is to really get to the story of, it's like she was talking about this patient in particular that was waking up every day at 2:30. And you and I both know from a whole nother integrative approach that that can mean different things aligning with the body and how the body functions. And we can get into that in a whole another discussion. But again, in Chinese medicine, all your organs are on a clock, right? And so it's very symbolic, but I didn't give this back to her as far as understanding why you may be waking up at 2:30 in the morning because one of those organs may be in overdrive, right? And it's causing you to be out of balance with the other organs, and it creates conditions for the body so that it can't rest, rejuvenate, and restore. When I was writing back to this particular student, I was really very direct about um, looking at the research. And when you look at the research concerning sleeplessness, about 40% of our population in this country are sleepless. And that's a pretty good statistic as far as really the concerns about that restoration, that's need for repair, that need for the body to restore itself, and how much gets lost in that. And the other questions that I asked were of her to ask the patient were, what were the conditions that were causing this patient to awake every day, right? So I think that that's important. So those are going to be topics I think that we cover when we really look at this fatigue and sleeplessness. But the thing that I really wanted her to understand, and I did cite different research because they're in the traditional medical system, they're becoming acutely aware of the need for sleep, and that there's specific sleep disorders and different things. So I won't launch into too much more of that topic, but
We'll cover
as
it
it
in the lunch and learn.
yeah, as it ended up, I just thought it was incredibly interesting that when you're talking with people or patients, that it really isn't about you telling them what to do, right? That it really is about building that relationship so they can problem solve and figure out what they're going to do in their lives, right? I always say putting the tools in the toolbox, and you got to find the right tool. Um, but I think that's part of the important thing about the relationship that we want to build with the different people that are going to participate with us, right, in this endeavor that we're creating. So what do you think, Jess?
There's so much there, Lynn. I thought of right away when doing that patient intake and getting their story, right? There's only so much that we know of the tip of the iceberg about what's going on, right? And then there's that aspect too of the patient providing inaccurate information because they don't understand the importance perhaps of accuracy or the specifics and different things. And it made me think of a situation where overhearing a patient doctor interaction with a family member and being like, the just knowing the information they were providing isn't exactly what I observed. Anyway, my point is the body never lies, right? And so how can we get to that point? And not that anyone's purposefully lying, right? It's just we're all in our own show here. So how can we access and integrate that medical perspective from what the body and what we know consciously between the patient doctor interaction or patient nurse practitioner interaction and what is going on underneath all of that and what the body can communicate. And if we're not sleeping, then the body is still in a constant state of stress, right? And so it's taking that stress out of the system so that the body can relay the information, because right now all we know is we're stressed and we can't sleep, right? And then that affects every day and how we're going through the day. And so it can be that domino snowball effect of what else can we pay attention to so that we can take a stand and feel like everything's not falling down around us, right?
Very much so. I really love that you just illustrated all of that because it's really critical elements in well-being. And oftentimes I have learned, and I think you've learned too, that we are really disconnected from our bodies, right? And our bodies become like almost like robotic.
To
We get,
survive, right?
yeah,
It's a
and they,
survival mechanism through no fault of our own.
mhm. And I think it becomes, I've read like things from Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and different providers, and the research is coming out from the benefits of really understanding that the body is trying to, and I always tell patients that the body keeps working, and it works 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 and it recreates and it generates and it builds cells and it does all these amazing things until it can't. And then all of a sudden you see symptoms that arise from the different kinds of potential issues that are happening within the body. And so then we start to get signals that sometimes we pay attention to, just like you illustrated with the anxiety, right? Because we don't know where it's coming from. And then you really have to peel back. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, truly, to capture what's happening. And sometimes it takes several sessions to get to those layers. It doesn't just illustrate itself all in the very beginning. So I think it's understanding that. And the other piece of it is I think the body becomes so used to the patterns of behavior, right? It becomes very I mean, you set these patterns of behavior and you go through the same pattern of behavior all the time. Because I always say creatures of habit. We are creatures of habit, right? We do the same thing pretty much every day. I said, you could probably follow somebody around and you could see the behaviors that are pretty much consistent on a day in, day out basis. And I think that's interesting because a lot of it is learning to recognize that when those behaviors become detrimental to our own well-being, because there's some circumstance that may be connecting to us that is creating conditions for changes in our health. And I think that that is important to start to understand and embrace. And I think that's where we're going to go with a lot of these lunch and learns, is to really help people connect to and understand that the body is incredibly wise. And even the brain. I mean, the brain is interesting because the brain is always in protective mode, right? And it will send us into different areas to protect us that may not be in our own best interest, if that makes any sense at all. But the reality is that it will tell us things. I was listening to a gamer and I did this presentation for the group of the company that I work with. And she talked about, she had a terrible muscular disorder that she developed, and she was a long distance runner and she did all these different things, but she was a gamer. And she did a TED talk on it. And what happened is when the doctors came in and told her that she could not any longer do the things that she really loved in her life, she started to shut down. And her brain started to tell her that her life essentially was over. And she started to recognize this. And so she developed a game around her condition. And she developed different players on her team that were essential in her own well-being that she could contact, and they became, the whatever they were. I'm not a gamer. My kids are gamers, big time gamers. So I can't really address gaming. I play solitaire or whatever. But they are big gamers, and they're like, people that you align to be on your side, basically on your team, right? And so she would call them when she was going to go out for a walk or she was going to do different things, and gradually she restored her health. And she created this game that really saved her life, which was interesting. So it's funny how we do different things, but recognizing that we need to understand that we do have the capacity to make changes within ourselves and really honor the system, but you have to listen to the cues, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a timeline to our own individual healing journey, right? And we can't rush it or get to the finish line without running the marathon and doing the work and getting through those hard parts. And we are the managers of our own bodies, right? That the systems need management, and we are the only ones that can do it for ourselves. And I think that was a huge learning curve for me, and wanting everybody to have that same opportunity, but that's not in everybody's path and journey and what they're here to do, and really honoring the individual so that we have the space to be able to explore what we need to in all different ways on our healing journey. Otherwise, it would be like North Korea, and that's not a top vacation destination. So the ability to express our individuality and the healing journey and the life situations that present so that we can choose to heal. But what do we do when we don't have the tools and skills and haven't been introduced to the concept of responsibility in our own participation with that? And that's the hugest thing. And that's what gives me so much passion to connect here and share this, because we can all do this. We all have the same vital systems and organ brain connection that allows us the vehicle to explore here. And whether human or animal, there's a connection that we all share. And in that connection is honoring our own individual path.
Beautifully stated. And I think it's really, and we both know, because I've studied it from both perspectives. And it's really a little bit different system and how we look at how the body integrates. But I think, you know, in the long run, when we look at, and that's why I love nursing so much, because nursing is very holistic, because it looks at all the different elements of what is in the human condition. And I think that that's, you know, from spirituality to emotional health to psychiatric health to, you know, the body system health, all those different processes, what we take nutritionally, how we move around the universe, that kind of stuff. It really does, if you're really doing a good job, it really does embrace those different characteristics of what the human condition needs. And the thing is I think that even in the the end of life components, because I've worked from birth to death, and even in the end of life components, there should still be quality in that, right? There should be still that honoring of this whole entity of why we're here and how we can really help help patients and people to navigate through these different areas, that it is a part of that journey. It is okay, and it's to be honored. Whatever process, phase, condition you're in, it's a recognition. And sometimes, you know, you never come to it too late. Even though we look at it, we look at death as the final frontier, right? But we never come to it too late, because it's all about that unique learning and adaptation to the human condition. And I think that's the beauty in it. And I love the passion that you just brought forward in this, because it truly is. That's why we're here. We're here to bring forward, hopefully, a connection that's really going to help facilitate, you know, quality and comfort, and really connecting and caring to this unique presence that we have in and of ourselves. And oftentimes how long it takes, we give ourselves such a hard time for so long, many times. And really defining and finding the uniqueness and the wonder of who we are in this individual experience. We are a collective whole, and we can influence each other very much, because we do. But I think it's really allowing that energy to change and become more loving and kind in that energy that is moving forward. You know, it's like heart math, or the different kinds of scientific research that they're really looking at, that our energy flows way outside of our own being, right? So it's really understanding that. So I hope we'll go down that pathway. Again, we're out in the wilderness, going down that path into the mountains to find our way to get to the top of the mountain and down the other side. And I've done that. You know, I love that. And so, you know, hopefully we'll find those challenges, because it is a challenge to get up that mountain, right? To find a path that is uniquely our own, and not to be afraid, because fear blocks a lot of our process. A lot of our process. So I think I liked what we just did. I hope, you know. So I want to thank everyone, and thank you, Jess. You got any more words of wisdom? Because you really were a wealth of wisdom, and you know, thank you for sharing. This is a unique experience, and I'm excited about it. I'm really pumped to do this.
And it might seem abstract, right? Because it's not linear and analytical. It's about exploring the possibilities within you and around you, and creating in choice to empower yourself to a higher level of an experience. Because as many of us know, life, right? And when life starts lifing, then that reminder of, oh, okay, I can rise above and choose to be in another state of possibility, and calling in that, rather than being shut down. But when you're shut down, you know, there's a process to opening back up, and rushing it and being frustrated with ourselves for not being where we know we could be, or that contrast gives us that perspective, right? And so wherever you are in the contrast, knowing that things are going to continue to shift and change and build, and what can we do to, I like that phrase, out create the destruction, right? And that's the PowerPoint, I think.
That was wonderful. That was absolutely wonderful. And I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. I do. So thank you
So
for
let's
that.
create a new reality here, people, a new generation of health consciousness, a new way of understanding our beingness, and shift from what is to what can be. Thank you for joining us to create more possibility. I love, love, love all of you. Thank you. You, Lynn, are so great to keep showing up and being a part of moving this forward. Thank you for your energy and momentum.
I'm literally moving because I'm sitting on my ball again. So I moved out of the chair back on my balance ball. And so I'm moving back and forth because all of that energy. It's funny because I put these balls in a classroom one year, and it was amazing the response from the kids and that energy that kept flowing rather than them being trapped in a desk, right? Because it is that we are these moving energetic beings that need to have this space to be able to move and, create and be.
And we're all doing the best with what we have, right? We're all doing the best. And so giving yourself credit for doing your best is really going to help recognize that everything you are doing is a contribution to the greater whole of humanity. And you are so important. Your experience is so important to the greater contribution. So know that you matter, and your choices. We're here to offer more and give support and lots of love.
Lots of love. We'll see you very soon because we're going to keep doing this. You got it. I don't know if I can ever do that very well, but I did it. So,
Bye for now.
bye.